So ever since Halo Infinite launched, and even a little bit before it launched, many people, myself included, have thoroughly discussed a lot of the things Halo Infinite is missing. But I think what has been discussed the most is the bigger aspects of the game that are just not present in Halo Infinite. That should have been, like, co-op and Forge and a progression system, a working theater mode, things like that. Many people have discussed those things. I've discussed those things, but in this video today, I wanna touch on some of what people would consider, smaller aspects of the game. And you could actually argue that these things are not so small because they are part of gameplay, and many people agree gameplay is the most important part of a game. And so I'm talking about things such as dual wielding and playable elites and assassinations. I know Halo Infinite has many problems, right? So, these things are kind of lower on the list. Sure, all right, okay. But I still want to discuss them anyway, because these things absolutely should be in a Halo game. And I think that's all I'm going to discuss for this video, is just those three things: the dual wielding, the playable elites, and the assassinations. There's other more niche aspects of the gameplay that are missing in Halo Infinite, such as things like your sniper shot ricocheting off of surfaces. That you can't do that in Infinite. No player collision, so you can't, jump on a teammate's head, can't do things like that. And I think both of those things should always be in Halo. But for this video today, I just want to talk about those three main things that I listed. So when it comes to dual wielding, first off, it's incredible that we haven't had dual wielding in Halo since, we haven't had dual wielding in a mainline Halo since Halo 3. And that's what I'm talking about in this video. I'm talking about the mainline Halo games. Like H2A had dual wielding and had playable elites, but it wasn't a mainline Halo game. It was a game with like 3 or 5 maps or something like that. Just a handful of maps. It wasn't a full game. So I'm not talking about H2A. So yeah, in the mainline Halo games, we haven't seen dual wielding since 2007 with Halo 3. We haven't had playable elites in a mainline Halo game since Halo Reach in 2010. And Halo Infinite is the first Halo game since Halo Reach to not include assassinations. And I'm talking about the assassination animations, not just, the normal backsmack. Now, with dual wielding, I can understand dual wielding not being a thing in Halo more so than not having playable elites and not having assassinations. Because with dual wielding, I feel like you have to spend more time, balancing all the weapons and how they perform when you're dual wielding them, or you're just using one of the weapons, or, how does the damage output change when you pick up 2 of them? Because Bungie had to balance that in Halo 1 or in Halo 2 and Halo 3. So I understand not having dual wielding more than I can understand not having playable elites or assassinations. That being said, I still think dual wielding should absolutely be a thing in Halo. Absolutely. Even if it means doing this. Even if it means you have let's say there's this one weapon, and the weapon is dual SMGs, right? And they come in a pair. You pick them up and you're holding 2 weapons. You can't just pick up one. You can't swap them out. No, that the dual SMGs is its own weapon. So you pick it up, now you're dual wielding, can't drop one. And that's, obviously if they did that wouldn't be as good as dual wielding how it was in Halo 2 and Halo 3, but I'll take that over nothing, right? Because dual wielding was such an iconic thing in Halo back with Halo 2. I mean, it was the cover art of the game. It was in so much of the promotional art for Halo 2. Master Chief, dual wielding SMGs. It was, that was a huge moment in the E3 gameplay demo when they picked up 2 weapons. Like, dual wielding was such a big part of Halo, and now it's just gone and forgotten. So anyways, if that's what they have to do to get dual wielding in the game, if they have to abandon the freedom of being able to mix and match which weapons you want to dual wield, if that's what they have to do to get dual wielding in the game, then so be it. Like, again, like I already explained, they could just do the thing where, you know, they have different sets of dual wieldable weapons. Like, again, like just dual SMGs or dual plasma rifles, and you pick that weapon up and it's duals. You can't drop one, you can't mix and match. It's just like, that's its own dual wieldable weapon set. It's basically like a single weapon, except, you know, the view model, you have a weapon in each hand. Yeah, that's better than nothing. But ideally, I would like to see dual wielding how it was in Halo 2 and Halo 3, where you could mix and match which weapons you wanted. You could drop one. And, you know, some people argue that, like, dual wielding was kind of pointless in either Halo 2 or Halo 3. Like, they were kind of useless. There was no reason to do it. Hey, there are definitely situations I've been in where it is beneficial to dual wield weapons. There are situations I've experienced where I'll have a dual SMG, or I'll have an SMG and a plasma rifle, dual wielding them, and I will win the fight because I was dual wielding those weapons, and I beat the guy using the assault rifle or whatever it is. There's situations where I've picked up a pistol or a Magnum and a plasma pistol, and then, you know, that's worked out for me as well and granted me a fast kill. So dual wielding was definitely not useless. Like, there were definitely situations where it was beneficial, but, you know, a lot of the time you could get away with not dual wielding. But still, that's still not a reason not to have it in the game. You know, a lot of people find dual wielding fun. I find it fun. Like, there are times when I'll be in a match and I just feel like dual wielding. Maybe it's not, you know, the best option for me to pick up duels, and maybe I should stick to the BR, but sometimes I'll be playing against players who, you know, aren't that great, and I just want to have fun. I'll pick up, you know, dual wieldable weapons, and I'll just, you know, mow down enemies, and it's just fun. So even if dual wielding is, like, underpowered, it's kind of useless, people still find it fun. All right, people find it fun, and even if it's not perfectly balanced in multiplayer, you still have it for campaign. You can, you know, like, campaign isn't super competitive or anything like that. You can have fun dual wielding weapons in the campaign. So, I mean, however, I don't see any good reason to exclude dual wielding in a Halo game. And yeah, Bungie did not have dual wielding in Halo Reach. They didn't. And I mean, if you think about having dual wieldable weapons in that game right now, yeah, it might seem kind of weird because, you know, Halo Reach has been out for over a decade now. So, you know, it's kind of weird just to think about dual wielding in that game now. But it definitely could have worked. Even if that means putting dual wieldable weapons in the game that, you know, aren't that good, don't have a high damage output, people would still do it. People would still have fun with it. And again, there's also the other option where, you know, you have certain sets of dual wieldable weapons, but you can't mix and match. Either or, dual wielding should always be in Halo. Now I want to move on to Playable Elites, and this is another thing that I feel should always be in Halo. It was introduced with Halo 2 in 2004, and, you know, just the other day I went back and I watched the E3 2004 like multiplayer demo for Halo 2, the one that's on Zanzibar, and, you know, there was a moment in there where Joe Staten, he's dual wielding weapons, and he's looking at Max Hoberman, who's playing as an elite, and I'm looking at this frame, and I'm just thinking to myself, man, like, we don't have dual wield. We had this in 2004, and now we don't have Playable Elites, and we don't have dual wielding. We don't have either of these things that they're showing off at E3 2004 for their Halo game. They also showed off vehicle destruction in that demo, which is not as good in Halo Infinite, and they also showed off like destructible environments and dynamic elements of Zanzibar, and we don't have much of that at all in Halo Infinite. So, but anyways, about Playable Elites. There's a clip of Quindel Hoyo when he was still with 343. They did like a Q&A video, and he said something about, no playable elites in Halo Infinite because Halo Infinite is a Spartan story.
Will there be playable elites in Halo Infinite?
Okay, that's another big question. Similar to the last answer, no, we're not currently planning on supporting elites as a playable character in Infinite. And the reason is, this is a Master Chief story and a Spartan story, especially in multiplayer. We want to make sure that we focus on how Spartans battle against each other.
So with Halo 2 and Halo 3, as many of you know, elites in that game, they weren't designed to be too different from your Spartan model, right? Because Bungie was concerned with balancing both Spartans and the playable elites, and yeah, there were some differences, but they were more balanced than Spartans and elites were in Halo Reach. And Halo Reach is actually my favorite iteration of playable elites, because I think elites should be different. I mean, they are different. Let's not nerf them and make them like Spartans for like balancing purposes. No, make them different. Yeah, make them stronger, and taller and things like that, and all the differences with elites in Halo Reach compared to Spartans. Yeah, make them different, but only allow them to be playable in certain playlists and game modes. I think that was fine. That I prefer that. In Halo 2 and Halo 3, especially Halo 3, it could be really annoying at times going up against elites, because just for some reason, elites in Halo, especially in Halo 3, just felt like bullet sponges, could tank more shots, and it was just... And yeah, playing against elites in Halo 3 just felt weird at times, and many people prefer playing against Spartans. But yeah, the way Halo Reach did it, everything is Spartan versus Spartan except for select game modes and playlists. Like, you had Elite Slayer in some of the playlists where everybody played as elites, and then you had Invasion, the game mode where, Spartans on one side, elites on the other side, and then you switch sides. Yeah, I think that was my favorite implementation of playable elites. I'm not saying Halo Reach's elites were my favorite aesthetically. They did look really good, but I think Halo 2's are probably my favorite visually. Now, one thing that always disappointed me about Halo Reach and how they handled playable elites, and it even annoys me to this day, is I kind of wish there was a couple more playlists or game modes where you could play as elites. Like, I always want, like in Elite Slayer in Halo Reach, I always hated that it was just Covenant weapons in Elite Slayer. So that made me hate Elite Slayer. I always said to myself, okay, when Spartan Slayer, you have both Covenant and UNSC weapons. How come in Elite Slayer, it's just Covenant weapons? I would have much preferred Elite Slayer, the weapons on the map, to be the same as when you're playing Spartan Slayer. So I want to use a DMR and a sniper rifle and the Magnum and assault rifle as an elite. I want the weapons on the map to be the same. I hated that they just did Covenant weapons in Elite Slayer. That was always so fucking annoying to me, man. I hated that because I like playing as an elite. I like playing as an elite using a DMR, and you couldn't do that in Elite Slayer. I also really wanted a Spartans versus Elites playlist or game mode. The closest we got to that was Invasion, more specifically Invasion Slayer. But I always wanted a BTB Spartans versus Elites, or even a 4v4 Team Slayer, Spartans versus Elites. And preferably you would switch sides at a certain point, because Spartans and Elites are different, so it would be more fair to give players a chance on each side playing as each species. But even if they didn't do the switching sides thing, I still wanted to see that in Halo Reach. I remember that multiplayer madness trailer from Halo Reach for the Halo Reach beta, and they showed there was that one section, Spartans versus Elites. that always got me really excited. Like I really wanted like some type of just 4v4 Slayer or 8v8 BTB Slayer where it is just Spartans versus elites. Normal weapons on the map. You don't fuck with the map layout, and yeah, I always wanted that, but we never got that. We got shitty Elite Slayer with just Covenant weapons, and then Invasion was cool, but it's like sometimes I wanted to play Spartans versus Elites without the whole Invasion, stuff. You know what I mean? But anyways, back on topic. We haven't had playable elites since Halo Reach, Bungie's last Halo game. We didn't have dual wielding or playable elites in Halo 4, didn't have dual wielding or playable elites in Halo 5, and again with Halo Infinite, we do not have dual wielding or playable elites. And remember in 2004, that was like a big thing. Dual wielding and playable elites. That was very cool. People liked that. And now it's kind of been abandoned and forgotten. People treat those things as if they're kind of just smaller aspects of the game. But like I explained at the beginning of the video, these things are parts of the gameplay. And I think many people would argue gameplay is the most important aspect of a game. So maybe they are a little more important than people treat them. And now the last thing I want to discuss here are Assassinations. So Assassinations were introduced in Halo Reach in 2010. You could not turn these assassination animations off in Halo Reach. Halo 4 gave us the option to turn them off if you didn't want them. And same with Halo 5. And Halo 5 had a bunch of different assassination animations. And then here we are with Halo Infinite, and they are not in the game. Now, before Halo Infinite had released on a 343 live stream, I believe it was Tom French who said this. He said something about them not including assassinations in this game, and I think he either said it's because of this, or he said this is one of the reasons why. He said something about a lot of players just turned them off or didn't want to use them because, you get locked into this longer animation. You're more vulnerable when you're in there.
Folks have asked us, are they in? Are they out? What's going on with Assassinations? So what's the scoop there?
So they're not in for launch, and I think we're just going to be straight about that, right? Like, we actually really love Assassinations, and I remember being at an HCS tournament with Quinn Del Hoyo, our sandbox lead, right when I took my gig, and we were watching a match, and somebody went to backsmack somebody, and they had Assassinations enabled on accident because they turned them off, right? And they got this amazing assassination. It was a super hype moment in the crowd. But, what happens at a lot of levels is people just turn them off because, there's a gameplay disadvantage of it. And so one of the things we really wanted to do is take a step back and how do we think about how do these fit into the infinite gameplay loops? And so
that is not a valid excuse to not include assassinations. Assassinations were fun. People like them. Now, yeah, there were plenty of times where I would not want to do the assassination animation, especially when, playing competitively, trying to win. But there's also times where I did want to do it, where I was in a situation where it was appropriate. Like the other team, all the players on the other team were dead, and the last guy was in front of me, and I might animate them, or I'm just playing more casually and not against very good players, and I want to animate people. And you would do it there, and even if you never used assassination animations in multiplayer, again, you still have campaign, which is not that competitive, and it's just fun to assassinate enemies in the campaign. So yeah, even if you never want to use them in multiplayer, there's still a reason to have them for the campaign. I mean, it's kind of like Halo or Doom glory kills, but in Halo, and I think Destiny has its own version of glory kills now. Like these finisher animations that you can perform on enemies. And now that I think about it, Call of Duty and Apex Legends, they also have these finishers. So, I mean, this is just another example of Halo going backwards, where it was kind of ahead of the game with Halo Reach doing these things, these animations. I'm not saying it was the first game to do any kind of animation finisher like that, but I'm just saying we had it in 2010, and now we don't have it in 2022. So yeah, more evidence of Halo going backwards. Halo was so far ahead of every other game back then, doing things that no other game was doing. Even to this day, the older Halo games accomplish things that no other game has, and we're just going backwards. We're just throwing that massive head start that Halo had away. Halo really is just one of the most mistreated video game franchises, if not the most mistreated. Such wasted potential. So last thing I want to say regarding assassination animations is that I do believe they should be in Halo. It's just another aspect of the game. Just people find fun, even if they're not the most useful thing, and you are kind of vulnerable while you're in them. People like to do it, and there's situations where it is, acceptable to do it, where you're kind of safe and you're not that vulnerable, and you can get away with it. And again, even if you never want to use them in multiplayer, you can still use them in campaign and, firefight and things like that. And so that's going to do it for this one. I know there's other things that I did not discuss. Again, like sniper bullet ricochet and player collision. There's, of course, there's so many. There's so many things that should be in Infinite that are not. There's also so many things that are broken within Halo Infinite that shouldn't be. But again, I just wanted to touch on these three things: dual wielding, playable elites, and assassinations. And because I kind of feel like they're like three of the bigger aspects of gameplay and I guess customization with a playable elites that are not present in Halo Infinite. And man, with how slow 343 operates, who knows if we'll ever get these things. I'm guessing assassinations would come before. I'm guessing assassinations would come to the game first, and then maybe playable elites, and then dual wielding. If these things were to come to Infinite, I think it would be in that order. And so that's going to do it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out, everybody.